Denver's head of elections says he won't make cuts to pay for the migrant crisis.
The cuts that are being asked of my office in a year like this, in 2024, with what we're up against, is absolutely unacceptable.
Tell me if you've heard this story before. Colorado's Democratic governor calls for a tax cut, but doesn't put up a fight when his fellow Democrats kill it again. Xcel Energy is about to pull some shift with your bill, changing the time of day when electricity is most expensive. And a first for the Ski Hall of Fame. It's about where this Coloradan comes from and what he's done. And it's next. Denver's mayor is getting pushback on his call for shared sacrifice to address the migrant crisis. The elected official who runs Denver's elections says he will not comply with the budget cuts requested by the mayor, not during an election year. Here's Mark Salinger.
The cuts that are being asked of my office in a year like this, in 2024, with what we're up against, is absolutely unacceptable.
In a city that's asking every department to cut its budget, Denver Clerk and Recorder Paul Lopez says his office will not comply.
We're not going to participate in any kind of budget cuts. It's 2024. We have a presidential election.
Lopez says Mayor Mike Johnston asked him to cut nearly $1 million out of his budget to help the city pay for the cost of the migrant crisis. Johnston has said the city is short $180 million this year, putting the blame on the more than 40,000 migrants who've arrived in Denver. Every office, from the police department to the animal shelter, is facing cuts.
It's a slippery slope when you talk about defunding elections. It's a slippery slope, especially now when our democracy is at stake. $1 million means that you're cutting operations, you're not fulfilling security mandates, or you're cutting personnel.
The Office of Clerk and Recorder in Denver is an independently elected, nonpartisan position. The mayor's office told us budget cuts were merely requested, not required, for offices like Lopez's that don't directly report to the mayor.
And I hope there's a willingness to learn about what we do before we are asked to cut from it.
In a presidential election year that also will see several local elections, Lopez says cutting $1 million from his budget will leave elections and election workers vulnerable.
Under no circumstance am I willing to sacrifice the safety, the security, the transparency, or the accessibility of our elections.
His answer to the mayor is clear.
It's 2024, and our democracy is at stake. So no.
The nearly $1 million that the Clerk and Recorder's office was asked to cut is about 5% of their total budget. They're part of the same category as, say, the District Attorney's office. We're told that office has also been asked to cut 5% of its budget, but again, they technically have the choice not to because it's an independently elected office. It's merely a request, Kyle, as the mayor's office put it to me today.
And then you got the money that's going to Denver Health. That also is a separate category. Mayor's office can't force Denver Health to take less money.
Right.
But a lot of city agencies do have to jump when the mayor says jump.
Yeah, there's a lot of offices that are already preparing. Things like the police department, the fire department, the public safety department, the animal shelter. All those offices, they don't really have the choice to say no. We asked the mayor's office, hey, are you guys also preparing to take budget cuts? They told us yes.
Like the mayor's office itself, the
Correct.
Staff and budget he has control over.
They say that they are the part of those budget cuts, just like every other department in Denver.
All right, Mark, thank you. As Denver deals with the financial pressure of the migrant crisis, the main impact in some other communities, at least at this point, appears to be misinformation and political posturing. Today, Colorado Springs City Councilman Dave Donaldson introduced a resolution declaring that Colorado Springs is not a sanctuary city. If you're thinking, well, yeah, duh. No, Colorado Springs is not a sanctuary city, so there would be no impact from this resolution. There were 21 migrant families that arrived in the Springs earlier this month. Donaldson's resolution takes the things a step further, says that the Springs will not spend taxpayer dollars on any immigrant-related services. The city attorney basically had to step in to say, this is just talking about values. There's no real impact here.
Would you please define the term sanctuary city from a legal perspective?
I don't believe this resolution has any legal impact. I think it's a political statement.
Does the administration intend to spend money on that? Or are they willing to?
I can't possibly predict what other resources might be needed. Of course, if there was a fire, I imagine the fire department would respond.
Would you say that we have a crisis in Colorado Springs right now around immigration?
There's absolutely not a crisis in Colorado Springs right now.
After all that, Colorado Springs City Council approved the resolution, reiterating they are not a sanctuary city. The vote was 6-3. An anti-migrant effort in Lakewood is giving us an up-close look at how misinformation is spread from the local level to the national level.
But unless they're stone deaf, unless they just don't give a damn about how you feel, then there's got to be something they're going to do about this.
A crowd packed last week's anti-migrant town hall in Lakewood. They were drawn there by anonymous flyers falsely claiming that Lakewood planned to become a sanctuary city and house thousands of migrants from Denver in empty schools. It was the work of the head of the Jeffco Republican Party. The claims weren't true, but the flyers worked. The crowd showed up, and they were angry. And they got on Fox News Channel with the headline, "Denver suburb residents fear sanctuary city status."
These people turned out in force. This is a suburb of Denver.
At Monday's Lakewood City Council meeting, city leaders repeated there are no plans to become a sanctuary city and no plans to take in migrants from Denver. But the crowd got back on Fox News again with an even wilder headline, "Migrants overwhelm resources in Denver suburb."
Residents say their hard-earned tax dollars are going toward migrants and that resources are simply being overwhelmed.
A false claim flew from a flyer out across America within days. A national news story invented before our eyes. The very real border crisis led to the impeachment of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas within the last hour. House Republicans had failed on a previous attempt because they were blocked by Colorado Republican Rep. Ken Buck. Today, they had a member back from a medical issue, so Buck's no vote was not a deal breaker. Again, Buck was one of the 3 Republicans to vote against the impeachment. He said that he disagrees strongly with the Biden administration's border policy, but that it's not a high crime or misdemeanor that you would use to impeach someone over. That opposition was enough to sink the resolution last week, but Republicans passed it 214 to 213 tonight with the return of Representative Steve Scalise from a medical issue. Mayorkas becomes just the 2nd cabinet member in American history to be impeached. He's almost certainly going to be acquitted by the Democrats who run the Senate. Governor Polis and his fellow Democrats at the state capitol do this tax dance year after year. The governor calls for tax cuts, and that draws cheers from Republicans and independents, and it gives Polis the libertarian credentials he craves. And then Polis just lets other Democrats kill the tax cuts. It happened again today. So this week, Republicans proposed a bill that would reduce the state income tax rate from 4.4% to 4%. Sounds like a slight reduction, but they estimate the bill would reduce state income tax collection by more than $1 billion in the first year. Republicans accurately pointed out this is what the Democratic governor keeps saying that he wants.
The governor in his State of the State has consistently talked about wanting to reduce the income tax.
That the governor wants to lower income tax. Now he's mentioned all the way to 0 eventually, but this is obviously just a tiny little step in that.
And I challenge Democrats and Republicans to work together to improve our economic growth and success by not taking taxes that we can't keep anyway, and instead working on a bold and balanced and progressive package, including cutting the income tax rate.
They love it in the State of the State every year, and then whoop. So the tax cut died, largely on party lines, with Democrats against, Republicans in favor. It allows the governor yet another year of claiming that he is for income tax cuts without actually having to push his party to make those tax cuts happen. So if we were to pick your top complaint from Xcel customers, and it's a thick book, that top complaint would be smart meters. The ones that allow Xcel to know exactly when you're using your electricity, then charge you based on the time of day you use it. That type of billing was meant to change everyone's energy use habits. Our Marshall Zellinger explains why Xcel wants people to change those habits again.
It's 3 p.m. Do you know if your light switch is on or off? Xcel Energy's electric time of use rates are the most expensive during the week from 3 to 7 p.m. And a discussion recently at the Public Utilities Commission revealed it will not be 3 to 7 p.m. for long.
They're more appropriate peak demand periods for time of use rates and demand charges, maybe weekdays between 6 and 9.
That's PUC Commissioner Eric Blank revealing that likely next year the most expensive electricity will shift to a time when more people are at home. Why? Based on these charts from Xcel, into 2025 and 2030, solar-generated power, which is cheaper, will be in greater supply in the 3, 4, and 5 o'clock time frame, meaning conservation efforts may need to be shifted to later in the evening.
But I think we have to acknowledge we are getting people used to and educating them about something we know is not right. We know it's not accurate.
While the PUC publicly talked about this, Xcel has actually warned it is not the right time to put this new shift on customers. Here is a member of the PUC staff explaining the reason by Xcel, which is also referred to as public service.
Public service objects to changing TOU periods now because doing so would require a modified customer educational program, which the company claims could lead to customer confusion and dissatisfaction.
Speaking of customer confusion, last year we heard from several customers about their new smart meters, like Ann from Aurora.
I wanted to know what would be the best rate. How much does it cost if I stay on flat rate, or how much does it cost if I use time of use billing?
Another customer, Gary in North Glen, said he switched from time of use to a flat rate, and then his bill stopped showing him his time of use to know if he made the right choice. Xcel recently told the PUC that it did the math on 310,000 customers, and that if they had switched from time of use to a flat rate, they would have saved 21 whole cents. For Next, I'm Marshall Zellinger.
So the time of use rules are not changing yet. Peak times are still 3 to 7 p.m. during the week. State regulators have a goal of getting the new time of use rates in place by May of 2025. We've talked here about how the Colorado Republican Party mainly exists to serve the interests of one man, State Chairman Dave Williams. Further proof today as the Colorado Republican Party attacked a longtime Republican leader who just happens to be running against Dave Williams in a GOP congressional primary. The state party dedicated an entire email newsletter to going after political activist and podcast host Jeff Crank. The email calls Crank an anti-Trump candidate, accuses him and his supporters of being behind an embarrassing news story that showed that the Colorado GOP was considering using Dominion voting systems for party voting. That's the same company that Republicans have falsely claimed rigged the 2020 election. Now, the email is signed by the Colorado Republican Party, but it's far from the first time the official party apparatus has been used to attack Williams' opponents or to boost his own campaign for Congress. He used the official party email last year to attack Congressman Doug Lamborn for supporting a debt ceiling compromise. He had run against Lamborn previously. And then last month, the chairman used the same party email list to promote his own candidacy to replace Lamborn.
So anything that was had to do with boards, I was there.
Set to make history when he's inducted into the Ski Hall of Fame. And believe it or not, giving the mayor a ticket to the Super Bowl does not violate Denver's ethics rules. That's next. Denver Mayor Mike Johnson got free tickets to the Super Bowl, which is perfectly acceptable under the city's ethics policy. Johnson got the tickets from former Bronco Brian Griese, who's now with the 49ers coaching staff. Johnson says he's been friends with Griese for like 20 years since Griese's playing time here in town. Griese gave the mayor 2 tickets, one for him, one for his son. The city says that Johnson did not use any city funds for the trip. He paid for his airfare and hotel and did not take his security detail to Las Vegas. Denver's ethics policy focuses not so much on the value of the gift, but whether the gift giver could pose a conflict of interest, like if they have pending business before the city. So if you see Brian Griese around town asking for the mayor or somebody to do him a solid, you let us know. Kathy Sabin's in now with a look ahead at weather.
Kyle, it's a beautiful evening in downtown Denver, and we just have a forecast of love for Valentine's Day tomorrow. But snow will be returning to the high country by midday. We've got a few clouds coming in, and so many of you sharing sunset pictures with me tonight. I'll post those tonight on 9 News at 9 and 10. Our high temperature at 53 today, above the average of 45, and this is a trend which will continue for another day or so before a Pacific storm brings moisture into the high country. For now, high pressure is keeping storms to the north of us, so we're focusing on the nor'easter sliding offshore and pulling in some of that cold air, 6 to 12 inches of snow across the northeast, while we're seeing a dry northwest flow on the backside of a building ridge of high pressure that will hang tight until tomorrow. Mountain snow showers expected tomorrow into Thursday, and some scattered snow showers here in Denver on Friday. Doesn't look like an overly impressive storm system, and so we're not looking at much accumulation at this point. Mid-40s with clear skies now dropping dropping 10 degrees by 10 o'clock tonight. Extended forecast shows highs in the 50s for Wednesday and Thursday, the coldest day of the week. Friday with a high of 38 and scattered snow showers. Clearing Saturday, back to the 50s Sunday and Monday. And we have a pattern next week. Well, temperature trend in the 60s for Tuesday, Wednesday, and maybe even Thursday of next week.
This award is an achievement that I definitely want to, make sure that everybody knows that I didn't do it. Everybody did. That was part of me.
A Coloradan headed into the Ski Hall of Fame says this is about his community. That's next. Ross Anderson grew up in southwest Colorado, skiing purgatory any chance he got. Now, a few national championships and an American skied record later, he is the first self-described full-blooded Native American to be inducted into the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame.
When I first started doing this in 94, 93, I wanted to make an impact as far as the Native American culture, really just wanting to race and get in the World Cup because I didn't see anybody of color, especially as a Native American. My name is Ross Anderson. I was a professional and World Cup speed skier. I currently hold the All-American record at 154.06 miles per hour.
I was born in these mountains.
I am an enrolled Cheyenne Arapaho, and I'm also half Mescalero Cherokee Apache Indian. I did grow up in Colorado, or in Durango. I love that place. It's it's like my backyard, the Purgatory Resort, the whole bit. When I did the record at 154.06, I was in the zone, and it was probably the coolest thing ever. Once you're in that zone, everything's slower in front of you. You can't really hear anything, and it's just, you're at a whole different level. So last September, got the call. You've been inducted into the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame, being the first ever Native American Indian full-blooded to get this award. It's an achievement that I definitely want to, make sure that everybody knows that I didn't do it. Everybody did. That was part of me. Having kids know that they can follow their dreams and there is no boundaries no more, and having that culture and that diversity, which we always need to do, and we're all as one.
That Hall of Fame ceremony is set for next month in Park City, Utah. A next viewer emailed in, thank you very much, asking who cares if the mayor got free Super Bowl tickets? I'll give you my answer. We'll have your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is Jenny Kavnar making history for women in sports. You know her from the Colorado Rockies broadcast and popping by next on occasion. She's going to become the first female primary play-by-play announcer in Major League Baseball history. This is huge news. Now, the sad part is it means that she is leaving Colorado because she's going to make that history with the A's starting in the 2024 season. She is Colorado through and through. She grew up in Aurora. She was an intern here at 9 News years ago. She was a backup play-by-play announcer for the Rockies and a pre- and post-game host. She worked on the Rockies broadcast for 12 seasons. Anybody who has ever met her or worked with her can attest to the fact that she was a genuine and wonderful person. We couldn't be happier to watch her make history with the A's. Finish with your feedback. Eric writes in tonight to say, so Brian Greasy gave Mayor Johnson Super Bowl tickets. Who the hell cares? Well, I care. I mean, if the mayor gets something that is of pretty significant value, it's fair for citizens to go, well, how'd he get that? So we know Gracie gave him the tickets. All right, good enough. See you next time.